When Hansel and Gretel got back to their house, Gretel had a bath and even brushed her hair. She wanted to be clean and presentable for Muriel when she picks her up. That's what Gretel did. Once Gretel was getting her dressed on, Hansel had left to go to Diablo's cabin to babysit Brooklyn while Diablo was out. As Gretel was putting on blush and even a bit of lipstick, she was sitting in front of her desk. Gretel was nervous. It was the first night out with Muriel or date with her. Gretel was nervous. Since it was her first time going on a date, well, Muriel hadn't asked Gretel on being her girlfriend yet, and the same could be said for Gretel. When Gretel finished putting up makeup on, she waited for Muriel. Her dress was navy blue with feathers, and a part of her neck was exposed, and her dress had long sleeves. As Gretel waited, Muriel was on a broomstick, flying to her friend's house. Gretel stepped out into the open for Muriel to see her easily. As Gretel waited, she looked up to see something flying in the sky. It turned out to be Muriel and headed towards her. It didn't take long to realize that Muriel had showed up, and she stopped at the front of the balcony. "Good evening, Gretel," Muriel said to the sheriff. "You all ready to go?" "Yeah, I sure am," Gretel replied as she got on Muriel's broomstick. Once she got on, she held on to Muriel as the girls took off on the broomstick, and they flew across the sky. Gretel could see everything in Augsburg, so small, and the forest looked like giant broccolis to her. It wasn't long until they reached Muriel's hideout in the mountains. "We are here, my dear. I took the time to get things ready," Muriel said as she and Gretel both got off the broomstick. Then Muriel took Gretel by the hand and led her inside. There was a romantic music playing in the background, and a lovely set-up dinner was there on the table. "Muriel, you did this yourself?" Gretel asked in surprise. "Of course, my dear. I did all the work myself," Muriel replied. Then she sat Gretel on the chair at one end of the table, and Muriel sat on the other end. Two women both had glasses of wine for each other, and Muriel looked at the witch hunter and smiled. "What would you like to eat, dear?" "Well, I could go for a salad," Gretel answered, "and maybe some spaghetti." "Gotcha!" Muriel cheered as she used her magic. A bowl of salad appeared, along with a plate of spaghetti. Gretel was amazed at the food. Muriel was having the same thing Gretel was having. "It's not poisoned, Gretel, so you're okay," Muriel replied as the girls began to laugh and then eat. Gretel was liking the food she was eating. Even better, she was with a friend that used to be her former enemy. As Muriel and Gretel were eating, the lights were dimly lit around them. Muriel had taken a lot of time and effort to this hideout, and she had to make sure everything was perfect. The music was lovely, and the dinner was great so far. "You enjoying dinner, Gretel?" Muriel asked, catching Gretel's attention. "It's good, Muriel. You did a pretty good job," Gretel replied, having a sip of wine. "Why, thank you. It's been a long time since I had a dinner night out," Muriel sighed, remembering the past a long time ago. "You know, we should do this more often. You're like the only friend I've known for a while now, and you're the only one I could trust you the most." "You're right, Muriel. I've trusted you for a while, and I've known you as well," Gretel said. "From the events that happened 3 months ago, I'm glad you've decided to change. It might have not been easy at first, but you're doing so well with it." "Surprisingly, I didn't expect that outcome, Gretel, but it did come out that way," Muriel replied. "Want more wine, Gretel?" "I'm good, thanks though," Gretel said. As soon as the girls finished their dinner, Muriel walked up to Gretel's seat. "How are you feeling about being my friend?" Muriel asked. "It's great, Muriel. Since you started to see things differently, I'm glad you're changing your ways and behavior. That's why I'm happy to be your friend," Gretel replied, making Muriel crack up a smile. "While the evening was still young and hard, why don't we witches go outside and dance?" Muriel suggested, having her hand out for Gretel. Gretel didn't know what to think of it. Muriel never asked anyone to dance with her in years, but Gretel wanted to take Muriel's hand as she stood up. "Of course, Muriel, I would like to have this dance," Gretel replied as she and Muriel headed over outside to the hideout. The girls began dancing slow, beautiful music, and as they were dancing, Ben was watching from a nearby bush. Luckily, the girls did not spot him. Ben had to keep quiet. "Gretel's with Muriel?" Ben whispered to himself. He had to keep quiet if he didn't want to get caught. "Is this why she rejected me? Is there something between her and Muriel?" As Ben was thinking about himself, a part of him wanted to intervene with the girls, but a part of him just told him otherwise, so he just stared at the girls. As Gretel and Muriel were dancing, Muriel dipped Gretel by surprise. When Muriel caught Gretel, the witch hunter was surprised. "What's the matter?" Muriel asked. "That dip was a dance move." Nothing's the matter, Muriel. I just wasn't expecting you to dip like that, Gretel replied. I thought I was gonna fall. My dear Gretel, if you were to fall, I'll be there to catch you, Muriel reassured the witch hunter. She and Gretel kept on dancing. After a few minutes of dancing, Gretel felt that he didn't even feel before near an evil witch. Gretel just felt safe around Muriel, and she was safe around her since the two had become friends. And ever since they were friends, the two had trusted one another. It was while the feeling of it started to happen. The two really do have something between them. Sure, it may be bizarre for anyone, but the girls were feeling something between them. Gretel let her head fell gently on Muriel's chest, which was covered by her dress with feathers on them. Muriel blushed a bit. She never expected Gretel to lay her head on her chest, but she smiled as she looked at Gretel. Then there was something Muriel found out what it was. Gretel liked Muriel, something more, and Muriel liked Gretel as something more too. But as Ben had seen enough of what was going on, he disappeared into the forest and out of sight. Luckily, Muriel and Gretel did not see Ben watching them from the bushes. As the girls danced some more, they were growing tired and needed to sit down. So as the girls sat down on some rocks, Gretel looked at Muriel's blue eyes. Gretel hadn't noticed Muriel's skin was white with cracks on them while dancing. Did Muriel lose control being a witch while dancing? Well, at least Muriel wasn't angry. She was happy when she was with Gretel. Gretel, are you happy you're with me? Muriel asked as she had to ask Gretel a question, and it was a hard one. Muriel was wondering if Gretel would ever feel the same way she did, but she didn't want to make Gretel feel uncomfortable, but she did have to ask Gretel something at some point. Well, of course I am, Gretel. Muriel, why do you ask? Gretel asked. Well, it's just that we've been hanging out a lot and you've made me see something, Muriel replied. Then she leaned in closer. Something that I've never saw before, and I'm starting to see it. What is it, Muriel? Gretel asked again. What is it that you're trying to tell me? Well, I hope you're not going to be uncomfortable with this, Muriel began, scratching the back of her head, unsure of what the outcome would be after her question. But in case if you are, I can understand your reasons. Whatever you need to say, go ahead and say it, Muriel, Gretel replied. Okay, I know that I'm older than you. Well, you know that I know, and I know that you're an adult as well, but since I'm a witch, we're ageless pretty much, and I just needed to get it off my chest, Muriel sighed. Gretel, I've had a crush on you. This surprised Gretel, as she never expected Muriel to say that she had a crush on her. You did? You've had a crush on me? Gretel asked. She didn't know what to think of her former enemy who had a crush on her. Why did Muriel say that? Was it because Gretel had a crush on her as well? Gretel was stunned by Muriel's sentence, but she felt the same way Muriel did about her. Yes, I did, and if you feel uncomfortable with it, I understand, Muriel answered. Muriel, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I was surprised that you told me that you had a crush on me, Gretel replied. Because I felt the same way about you. I've had a crush on you, ever since you started changing, but I didn't know you felt that way about me. How do you feel about this, Gretel? Muriel asked. We're both bisexual, we like men and women, but for me, I'm more into women. The same thing could be said about me, and I feel good about this, Gretel answered. So Muriel, does that mean we're now a couple? If you want it to be that way, you could just say it, but if not, that's totally fine, Muriel replied. Muriel, I think we both are perfect for each other. No matter what people say about us, both of us are bisexual, like men and women, and I don't care who I'm with. As long as I'm happy if you are, Gretel said. Muriel did not reply, but instead she held Gretel close to her. Muriel was warm, and Gretel still felt shivers up her spine. The feel of Muriel's touch really had gotten to her. It was almost too good to be true. Muriel felt more closer to Gretel, and love was something Gretel never felt or had the time for. With her years of hunting witches and even becoming the town's new sheriff, Gretel had been a busy bee, and she never expected to be in love with someone in her life. But with her, love being with a witch was something that she couldn't even describe. Gretel looked at Muriel, and before the two closed their eyes, and their hands were inches away from each other. It wasn't long until Muriel and Gretel's lips both met each other, and a kiss was formed between the two of them. Gretel never kissed anyone before, but with Muriel, it felt almost too different. This was her first kiss with someone, even if it was with another woman. The girls didn't even pull away from the kiss or anything. They were just surprised that they were kissing. They really liked that moment, and it was a great time to kiss each other. After what seemed to be a few more seconds, Muriel and Gretel broke the kiss and looked up from each other. "I love you," Muriel said, making Gretel's heart and fluttered with smiles and butterflies. "I love you too, Muriel," Gretel replied, making Gretel's heart feeling the same as Gretel's. The two girls were happy that they became a couple, even though they were different, but they really liked each other very much. As Gretel was being dropped off by Muriel, she looked at the witch from her balcony, and as Gretel had a fun time with Muriel, the night just went off just the two of them, and was the most fun Gretel ever had. She got to be with Muriel, and she even got to tell her feelings towards her. But most of all, Muriel and Gretel had their first kiss. "I do appreciate tonight, Muriel. It was fun. We gotta do this more often," Gretel said to Muriel. "Of course, Gretel. We can plan more dates," Muriel replied, smiling at the sheriff. "I'm glad you're my girlfriend. I thought you were gonna reject me or at least, turn me down on the offer." "Well, I'm glad you're my girlfriend too, Muriel. I never thought you'd change from a wicked witch to someone who is really special to me," Gretel said. And then so Gretel will eventually tell the whole town that Muriel's changed, even though they may not like it at first. But Gretel is sure that everyone will warm up to Muriel. "Thanks, my dear. I hope you have sweet dreams," Muriel replied as both girls kissed each other again, but it was a peck this time. As Muriel watched Gretel enter her bedroom, she waved goodbye to Muriel as the witch flew back to her hideout. Gretel was so happy for herself. She finally got herself a girlfriend, and she is going to love Muriel no matter what. The next morning, Gretel woke up and walked downstairs to the kitchen. Hansel and Mina were there, and the two were making breakfast as Ben walked inside the house. He had just fed the animals at the stable. "Morning, everyone. How's it going?" Gretel asked, smiling bright as usual. "Good. Was your night with Muriel went?" Hansel asked. "It went well. I just became her, girlfriend, or boyfriend-girlfriend, but of course, it doesn't really make sense, but you could just kind of say, we got in a relationship and we're now dating," Gretel replied. "Wait a minute, you and Muriel are dating now?" Mina asked, sounding surprised. "When did you start dating?" "Yesterday. Muriel confessed her feelings for me and I didn't know what to say, but she told me how she felt about me," Gretel replied, hugging Mina as Ben walked in the kitchen. "Hey Gretel, what's up?" Ben asked. "I watched you and Muriel dancing from the bushes the other day. I was hunting when I heard you two talking." "Ben, why were you watching us?" Gretel replied in a question. "I'm not mad, I'm just wondering." "Well, I didn't know that you and Muriel were spending time together, and I was just wondering what was going on. I only watched you two for a bit," Ben explained. "I wasn't spying or anything. Just don't tell Muriel I was watching you two. I'm afraid she'll think I'll tell everyone and she'll be killed." "I won't, Ben. I'll make an announcement to the town people of Augsburg as soon as it'll have to come to be soon, though. I can't keep Muriel a secret for long," Gretel replied. Just as a few weeks went on, Gretel and Muriel had been dating for at least a month and a half now, and Gretel had been doing everything she can for the witch. And as for Gretel was sleeping on the couch one day, Hansel walked over to see his sister asleep. "Sis, are you, Hansel was then cut off when Gretel suddenly woke up, snoring as she was awoken. "Hansel, you startled me, bro," Gretel replied, sitting up on the couch. "What time is it?" "It's 8 in the morning. You have any plans today?" Hansel asked, looking at his sister on the couch. "I'm gonna go see Muriel again, but I'll have to stop and see Diablo in Brooklyn. I think I should bring them with me. They would like to see Muriel," Gretel explained. "I agree, sis. Like, Diablo hasn't seen his sister in a while. Well, except when he brought her back to life," Hansel agreed. "And she already knows that Brooklyn is her niece. I don't see any harm on doing that." Gretel nodded as she had some oatmeal with her brother for breakfast, and once breakfast was finished, Gretel got ready to go out. She had to make a speech to the townspeople in Augsburg, but how could she do it without the controversy over her and Muriel being a couple? That was something Gretel would have to figure out, as she had a lot in her mind at the time, and this was the most tough decision Gretel has ever had to make. She made plenty in the past, but this time, this one was pending on Muriel's life. As Gretel spotted a cabin where she grew up, she saw Diablo and Brooklyn in the treehouse beside the cabin. Brooklyn was the first one to see Gretel through the window, and she got her father's attention as they waved at Gretel. "Hi, Gretel," Brooklyn said excitedly, as she and Diablo climbed down from their treehouse to meet the sheriff, and Gretel smiled big as she did. This was the first time in God knows how long she smiled big. Gretel, how nice of you to stop by, Diablo said, hugging the sheriff. Then he noticed Gretel smiling big. What's making you smile big, honey? Well, Diablo, your sister and I had our night out the other night, and let's just say it went very well. And you're not gonna believe this, but it's awesome, Gretel replied, very excited by her tone. What is it? Diablo asked. Muriel and I are now a couple. She asked me and I accepted it, Gretel replied. Well, that's awesome. I knew you two had something and that no one saw. I'm actually happy for you and my sister. I hope she's okay, Diablo said. I'm planning to bring you and Brooklyn to see her, Gretel said. You haven't seen her in years, so this is a great time, Diablo. Brooklyn has already seen her on the day when me and Muriel were at the park and she was on her school trip. Well, I do need to see my sister, but what if she still hates me? Diablo asked in concern. Diablo, I can assure you that Muriel will not hate you. Whatever happened in the past between the two of you will most likely not affect what's going on now, Gretel reassured him. As Diablo nodded and agreed to go with Gretel, Diablo told Brooklyn to get ready, and she did so. As Brooklyn was getting ready, Diablo was so nervous. I'm not sure if this is a great idea, Gretel. What if Muriel starts arguing with me, or what if she wants to kill me? Diablo asked frantically. Look, Diablo, don't be such a man-child. You'll be fine. Just trust me, Gretel replied, but more sternly in her voice. Once Brooklyn was ready to go, Diablo and his daughter followed Gretel up towards Muriel's hideout in the mountains. Once they got to the top, Gretel had been collecting oiled frogs, and she had them in a bag, and she kept them for the Blood Moon event that happened 3 months ago. She wasn't sure why she had them, but she had them with her anyway. A few minutes went by, and Muriel looked up to see her girlfriend coming up to the mountains, and she brought along Diablo and Brooklyn with her. To Muriel, it had been years since she last saw her brother, and she was happy to see her niece. Gretel walked up to Muriel and hugged her girlfriend before looking at Diablo, then back at Muriel. Muriel, I just brought your niece and your brother up to see you, Gretel said. I just thought you would want to see your brother again. You two have a lot to catch up on. Muriel then turned to Gretel, wondering why she had brought her brother up to see her. She wasn't angry with Gretel, but she was just curious. Why did you bring my brother here? Muriel asked Gretel, unsure of what's going on. I brought him up to see you, Muriel. You haven't seen him in years, Gretel answered. Whatever happened in the past between the two of you is in the past. Now is the time for her to hug and make up for it. Muriel trusted Gretel with her words, and she looked at Diablo. Flashbacks of Muriel and Diablo looking out for each other hit her like a bullet. She always looked up to Diablo whenever she was sad, but when it came to her and Diablo having a falling out, Muriel had regretted that falling out, and she welled up in the tears. Diablo, Muriel said softly, crying tears as she gave her brother a hug. As Diablo returned the hug to Muriel, he was more than happy to see his sister. Ever since he used the spell to bring her back, he was afraid that Muriel was gone forever. But ever since Gretel started visiting her, he had trusted Gretel that Muriel was alive, and to Diablo, Gretel was right on Muriel being alive.